What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Game Time Discussions. My name is Cameron Selby here with Emery Cuzzy. Today we're going to go over the tight ends of this 2024 draft class. We got six names to talk about, a couple honorable mentions. This is truly one Goliath and a bunch of Davids with the class. Obviously, Brock Bowers is no secret. He will be number one, but we'll break down a little bit of why he might be one of the greatest prospects ever, as well as going through some because everybody has been kind of grasping for that 2 spot, and a lot of people have their own case for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And this class has a ton of really solid 3rd and 4th rounders. That's what we keep seeing. We see a bunch of tight ends. We see tight ends come out, and 3rd round grade, 3rd round, 4th round guy, and then they're super productive. Sam Laporta, George Kittle was a 4th rounder, I believe.
He was 5th
rounder.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Kelsey's in a 3rd. Yeah.
Yeah. So and I don't mean that that's going to take away from Brock Bowers and his 1st round grade, but at the same time, the other guys still have an opportunity to make a big impact on their teams. Tight end is becoming a necessity position that you don't actually have to pay a wide receiver premium for, and you get the blocking aspect too. So I love tight ends. I think that they should get more love, and I'm finally starting to.
Yeah, I think in recent years there was a big significant gap between like the top 3, 4, 5 tight ends, and then the rest of the field were a bunch of guys. But we've had some really strong draft classes at the tight end position the last couple of years, and then all of a sudden there's about 12 guys that are incredible. Like, I don't even know if I would consider Kyle Pitts, who 3 years ago was a top 5 pick in the draft. I don't even know right now if he'd be a top 10 tight end. That's not saying that he's been a bust, but that's just how deep it is now, and then we're adding more to that.
Well, the problem is, too, you have different kinds of tight ends. So I guess the best, look at Buffalo. Buffalo has Dalton Knox and Dalton Kincaid. Both can be on the field at the same time. Completely different styles of play. Dalton Knox is more of a blocker. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's hard.
Dalton Kincaid, I've
done that in a video too.
But yeah, so Dawson Knox is more of a blocker, while Dalton Kincaid is more of like a receiver. And so there's different styles of tight ends. The tight ends nowadays, we love fantasy. That's how the world is running. So we want the Travis Kelce's of the world and stuff like that. But truly, to me, it's not even close. George Kittle's the best tight end in football. And it's more so because you get plays like where he pancakes Aiden Hutchinson in the NFC Championship game. You get that type of play. You won't get that same play out of a receiving tight end. You'll get, other spectacular things happening. But all around tight ends are my favorite. We've got a couple fun ones to talk about. Obviously, Brock Bowers. But yeah.
Okay, yeah. So we'll kick it off with, like I said, 2 honorable mentions: Jaheim Bell out of Florida State, Jared Wiley at TCU. Give us a little bit about each one and why they could be impactful in the next level.
So Jaheim Bell is one of the more athletic guys in this class. He's a Florida State guy, so I watched him a lot, but his production wasn't always there. A lot of these tight ends, they're not going to have like these 1,000-yard receiving yards, but production on like being the safety net, being the outlet, being a guy that a team looks to basically get 4 or 5 yards. Jaheim Bell's more of, it's funny, he's almost like I'm going to run a good route, take the top off kind of guy. It's very confusing, like his role versus his position. But at the same time, he's a lot of alignment versatility, inline versus slot. So inline means he's actually going to play with his hand in the dirt next to the tackle, capable of blocking a little bit. And then slot is like stand up, actually be a receiver, a little bit H-back, which is behind the line of scrimmage and can do a little bit of everything. So that's good. We always love that kind of flexibility. But he probably doesn't fit as a number 1 tight end anywhere. And that kind of hurts his stock for sure. I see him as more of like a number 2 to a team that already has a established blocking tight end. A team like Miami. Miami has Durham Smythe. He's a good blocking tight end. Jaheim Bell could be the receiving tight end and go help them there. And then that's the same state. So they kind of, right down the street, basically.
Yeah, that I guess profile reminds me a little bit of somebody like Gerald Everett,
Yeah.
who to me his best years came when he was a backup to Tyler Higbee,
Mhm.
and being the fifth option in the offense, and he just always seemed to sneak out the back end on wheel routes and make big plays in big moments, and
Right.
then he gets a starting job and just underwhelming with the Chargers, and now he's a backup to Cole Kmet, so
Mhm.
maybe he can rekindle some of that. So it sounds like Jaheim Bell has a little bit of similarity with that.
Right. Exactly.
So
That's
yeah.
yeah. I see that for sure in him. Just not necessarily gonna be anything special, but could be a rotational tight end at the next level, basically to me.
Gotcha. And then, like you said, Jared Wiley,
Mhm.
TCU.
Yeah, Jared Wiley is 6'7", I believe. Almost, I think he's 6'8", but that's just me. I know they measured him, but he's so tall. He's a huge guy. Kind of, you look at him and you put him on a line with all the other guys, and you be like, that guy, I want him on my team. He's like that. The jump ball, really good athlete. He's got a really good build, athletic build. He shows up in the red zone. When you need him, kind of like as that style. He can't block. So that hurts his stock for sure. Because when you think tight end, of course we want to talk about the receivers, like I said earlier, but you kind of have to be able to block a little bit. Like so, similar case to the fact that he'd probably have to go be a wide receiver and have another inline tight end somewhere. He just can't he can't block one-on-one on edges. But his frame allows him to help on linebackers and safeties because he is so long and athletic. He has the alarm of versatility as he can play slot, he can be wide receiver, he can be out wide. So that's good. But 6'7", it's a little hard sometimes to get your hands up under people when you also only weigh 260 pounds versus a 350-pound O lineman. So
we're going to start off with our tight end rankings. There's 6 guys that we want to bring up. We're going to start off with Cade Stover out of Ohio State. He's one that I've always thought when I've watched Ohio State games, he just kind of stands out in multiple ways. Even though his numbers are never eye-popping, he just kind of jumps off the screen. Tell us a little bit more about him.
So he's kind of he's just Mr. Consistent. So I think that's what you mean by popping up the screen. He just is always doing the right things. It also has a little bit to do with the fact that he's 24 years old. It helps when you've been in the offense for so long and have done it. It's not like it has changed either at Ohio State since he's been there. He was a product of the COVID and the redshirt year that he got. So, he's a little bit older. If you're on a 4.65, it's pretty normal across the average athleticism across the board for the position. He's a good blocker. Just a guy that's average everywhere. Not going to blow you away with anything. I think the one thing that's above average is his IQ. Very smart guy, very intelligent. And he had 0 drops this year, and he had a 60% contested catch rate, which is something that isn't to scoff over for a tight end. You think about those numbers when you go to wide receiver. So yeah, Mr. Consistent, just good at football across the board. Kind of reminds me of his teammate on the other side of the ball, and Tommy Eichenberg. Just both of them, very good football players. And Ohio State does a pretty good job of finding those types of players to be around their stars. So yeah.
Yeah, so obviously that's somebody that is going to be a mid-round pick, but I think, like I said, I've always liked watching him play, so he's somebody that might stand out to me depending on who gets a hold of him in the later 4th, 5th round, and I think he could be somebody that becomes a starting tight end very soon, and just is productive for a decade.
Fit matters. Fit's going to matter here for sure. I think that, his age worries me a little bit. And the fact that he doesn't have some spectacular trait. So it's is he going to be put into a room where he's around a bunch of other guys that are just as normal, I guess? and can he outplay them based on just being a better football player, better high IQ guy? Because he is a really good football player. I mean, that is not anything to overlook. Like, he can do a lot of things because of his tenacity, his style of play. He wants to run you over. And so he's a good blocker. He does all the things right. It's just, does that translate to NFL starter, or is that like, I'm an inline blocker when I need to be in there?
Mm-hmm.
So
Gotcha. So moving on, we'll jump into our top 5. Dallin Holker, first team All Mountain West. Didn't go to the biggest school. He does have a little bit, or he's a little smaller, and he has the age as well. And he's a little bit of a polarizing because he doesn't have the greatest, I guess, athleticism. However, he was very productive in college.
Yeah.
So give us a little bit about him and why he cracked our top 5.
So he looks bigger and plays bigger than he is on the screen. I don't know that 241 is his actual weight. I'm going to expect him to be around 255. That's the combine weight. I mean, that's what we get when we go to the combine. They want to run faster 40s, which actually did not happen in this case. 478, but still, I think he probably weighs a little bit more than that on a typical day. Possibly the best hands in the class. One-handed catches, 3 or 4 or 5 of them everywhere, highlight reel type of guy, which is kind of interesting because he resembles a shorter Gronk to me, which is kind of like because he runs like Gronk. He like has that movement style. Not that he's like he's gonna play like Gronk at the next level, but he has that same, I don't know, like how he moves his body just looks and resembles Gronk. They're the same, like, proportional. So that was something I saw that was kind of interesting. He's probably one of the better safety valves in the class. Very smart, finds openings, yards after catch. Multiple times he makes people miss in open field because it's almost like it's weird. It's like, I guess people don't expect him to be able to make quick movements when he runs so fumbly and bumbly like Gronk did, And so all of a sudden he's on you and like he makes a move and you're just like, oh wow, this big guy,
Right. I mean, speed isn't the end all be all.
No.
I mean, you look at his shuttle time and it was relatively quick, 2/10 quicker than Cade Stover when Cade had over a tenth faster over 40. So straight line speed is not something I'm really concerned about. And I grew up in the era of Jason Witten, where slow as stilts. It seemed like he couldn't run a 5 flat 40, but he left people in the dust with his route running, and he was impeccable. He was a safety valve, like you said. So, like, the 40 time isn't the concern. It was more so you also have the age and the size. But if like you said, he plays more at the 250 range, then that's something that is a moot point.
Yeah, exactly. I think that we talk about the combine sizes, but like we talked about Braylon Trice on our Edge video, and he lost 30 pounds because he wanted to run a fast 40. So it's not
or Nate Wiggins.
Yeah, or Nate Wiggins.
160 and 165, and then he gained 13 pounds.
Yeah,
first part of the day.
So it's not necessarily the fact that we take all of that into just like it's concrete evidence. No, it's like, okay, well, he probably wanted to not look slow. I mean, that makes sense. I don't want to be slow. I want to just naturally.
Like, what is a 4.85 going to do for you if you're already a mid-round prospect? It's probably going to leave you out of even being drafted. So.
Yeah, he was a solid player this year, and I think that like he deserves to be on this list. He was a Mackey Award finalist. 64 catches. I mean, he was basically Colorado State's number 2 receiver. And the funny part is he can play inline also. He can block also. About 50-50 snaps inline versus the slot. Just kind of a really good all-around player, but more quickness, more lateral movement than Cade Stover. Just more fantastic. His hands are amazing. He, like I said, he might have the best hands in the class. So that also helps his case because a lot of teams are looking for guys that are going to not only be able to make short routes and short plays, but also, run deeper routes, make, catches in space against like safeties and other things. He's going to be a little bit of a nightmare for linebackers to cover.
So yeah, we'll move on now into our top four. We're going to start off by going to Ja'Tavion Sanders, who probably before we started the combine process, he was in most people's number 2 tight end in the class. And after the combine, he really, really didn't help his case. He is one of the youngest tight ends. He will be just turning 21 in the summer. So, it's there, but it just seems like the production wasn't there at times.
Mm-hmm.
Not a great red zone threat based on what you would feel. And then the athleticism, he came in as a recruit. He was an athlete.
Yeah.
So he was positionless, and he moved to tight end. So when you are coming in as an athlete, you expect athlete, and he didn't really jump off the board with that at the combine.
So I actually thought he looked like a really good athlete on film, and I remember because we're out of Texas. I remember him playing in the state championship game. Denton Ryan, I believe, like making one-handed catches in high school. Like he was a polarizing guy coming out of high school, so we kind of expected him to continue being that because he was so much more athletic than everybody around him. The 4.69, it's troubling because long speed matters when you don't block very well, and he does not block that well. But even more so, he ran a 4.32 shuttle, and that's slower than Dallin Holker by a whole tenth of a second. To me personally, tight ends shuttle matters more.
Right, that's what I was.
Yeah, shuttle matters more than 40 time. But at the same time, he's 21. Going to be 21 years old. Not concerned with that part. He was on a team that had a lot of receiving options, so him not getting the ball as often as some of these other guys and being like the number 2 receiver, yeah, that makes sense. I get it. He's next to Adonai Mitchell and Xavier Worthy, like okay, and Jordan Whittington added on to that. So yeah, I get it. But he just needed to improve his stock more, and all the other guys around him that didn't get the same opportunities that he had did improve their stock during the Senior Bowl and the Combine. And that's why, he's not as high as 2. But I will say there's a tier list here, like 2 through 4, 2 through 5 could all be
splitting hairs.
Yeah, could all be 2 basically to me. And so it's like, how do you decide? Well, okay, how did you do at the Combine? How did you do at the Senior Bowl? How did you do?
Are you a complete tight end?
Yeah, are you able to block? Because that makes a big difference to me personally. Because these prospects, of course, we're going to look at fantasy and be like, oh, well, that guy's a better player. No. There's, TJ Hawkinson is a really good receiver and could be considered one of the best tight ends. But it's not because he can catch the ball. It's because he can block.
Right.
And then also be electric in the passing game. So those types of things. So.
Yeah, and like we said at the start of the video, he was probably everybody's tight end 2 in the pre-draft process. We've seen mocks having him early second round. I saw
a mock where he was 32nd.
Yeah,
which is just crazy.
It's insane. But now it feels like he's kind of flirting with dropping into the 3rd round, which is a full round difference, which you don't really see that from just combine performances. So that's really the thing about him is he is a little rawer than we thought he'd be at this point.
So I put a lot of pressure on tight ends to be good blockers. Me personally, when I rank, if I think about rankings, I'm like, okay, if you can't block, I probably can't put you in my top 3. And that's kind of what happened here. Because you have to be so electric. You have to be Kyle Pitts-esque when you're coming out to warrant being number 2 in this class, personally, if you can't block. And Kyle Pitts ran a 4.45 or something? Something in the 4.4s, I believe. Like an insane 40 time. And Ja'Tavion ran a 4.69, which is slower than actually everybody on this list except for Dallin Holker. The same speed as what I said was average, an average guy, normal guy, and Cade Stover. About the same time.
Right. So yeah, and like you said, being a pure receiving tight end, we've seen like the top ones growing up, like Antonio Gates,
Mhm.
like otherworldly athletic. Jimmy Graham.
Vernon Davis.
Yeah, Vernon Davis is another one. Jimmy Graham. Those guys that can just be that ultimate threat in the red zone. And, obviously they're not great blocking tight ends, but they're flirting with the league lead in touchdowns. So if you're not one thing, you've got to be excellent at the other. And so it feels like he's not as good as he could be in his strength.
What we expected, I think, him to be in his strength.
Yeah. But moving on, we'll go into our top three. Theo Johnson. He's one that doesn't have a ton of production, but we like him a lot as a prospect. Tell us a little bit why that is.
Yeah, so Theo Johnson kind of grades out as like film was okay. He's a really good blocker. Really good blocker. I mean, 6'6", 260. He's probably underweight on that screen.
Mm-hmm.
Can move really well. He had a 4.19 shuttle.
Yeah, that's the fastest, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's the fastest of any guy in this class. Run a 4.57 40. Just athlete. But there's always a but at the end of this because he's not number one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what did he do wrong? Well, okay, so first off, he's 23 years old. He was never productive. Now, that's partly because Penn State didn't allow him to be productive. I mean
their passing game just doesn't really
exactly. So that kind of hurt him. But when he went to the Senior Bowl, he looked better than every tight end there, except for one to me personally, one guy. And that guy's at number 2. So we'll talk about it in a second. But yeah, when he went to the Senior Bowl, he looked better than almost everybody there. Jaheim Bell, Jared Wiley, all these guys. And he was making catches. He was running routes that we hadn't seen him run or do. And it has a lot to do with the fact, like we just said, Penn State doesn't do those things. They don't help their tight ends out. Don't help any of their players out, truly, because they have so much athleticism on the team. They should be winning more games. But he really, really stood out. He was an honorable mention Big Ten player. And he's possibly a top 3 tight end in this class. And that shows you just like how they were using him incorrectly throughout his time at Penn State.
Right. Yeah. And at least, like we said, from production standpoint, of all the tight ends in this group, he has the most ground to make up in terms of the receiving game.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, wasn't graded out high. He did have 7 touchdowns, which is more than we've seen of thus far.
Right.
But, like you said, the whole body of work is not there. However, there's room to grow, and if he's making plays at the Senior Bowl, like you said, and impressing at the Combine, maybe it's just a case of I went to the wrong school to maximize my talent.
Yeah, I also think, like, when you look at him, you have to... He didn't have the production, but at the same time, he had production in the red zone. He had production in the parts of the fields, like, on third down and short. So that was always good to see. Like, you want those types of plays where your tight end is like your safety valve. He will be an inline tight end, H-back. I don't see him standing up as much and playing in the slot because he is such a good blocker. Right. He could be the George Kittle of this class, or he could be a complete just bust because we don't know what he can do receiving wise, and he hasn't done it. Right.
But we've also seen tight ends that last longer. You're more likely to last longer in the NFL being a blocking tight end than a receiving tight end, because receiving tight end, I think of like O.J. Howard, who is now out of football, first round pick that just couldn't put it together, couldn't block worth a damn, and then now he's only like 27, 28.
Yeah, out of the league.
Basically. He's out of the league, which you see first round picks get 4th and 5th opportunities everywhere. Yeah. He's not. But you see guys like Jared Cook, who's just okay, but he's playing until he's 38. Or Ben Watson is another guy.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
Tight ends age well if you can block. And so that there's always a role for those kinds of tight ends. A lot of teams like to keep even 3 and 4 tight ends.
Yeah.
So being a tight end 3 or 4, obviously if you're the third best in your class, that's not, you're not overachieving, but there's a role for you. That you don't want your third best tight end. Oh, I'm a good receiver. And it's like, well, our first tight end is.
Yeah, absolutely.
But anyway, like you said, Senior Bowl, our favorite one to come out and produce in that, Ben Sinnott, Kansas State. He's a year younger, prototypical tight end size, did solid all around everywhere. He's just really good football
Just
player.
good.
Yeah.
Just good. No,
But,
he's fun. He's a fun player to have on your team because he was basically Kansas State's number one option.
mm-hmm.
For multiple years too. It wasn't like he was just a 1 year guy. It wasn't a one trick, come out of nowhere guy. He's that was I wrote something here. It says pass catcher came to mind, right? And then I looked at his actual plays and what he did, and then I was like, oh, this guy's not a pass catcher.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, whoa, because 202 inline snaps versus 130 slot snaps. So that means he is a blocking tight end. In their book, he was the blocking tight end. Okay, didn't know that. That is good to know because I expected him to be, a stand up, basically 75% of the time in the slot guy. He was not that. He had an 81 receiving grade, which was second among all tight ends, which is we look at those receiving grades, and you're going to see the receivers when we go to them. Their receiving grades are in the 90s. Well, they're receivers. That's what they do. When you can get in the 80s on both receiving and run blocking. Oh yeah, now we're talking. So that's where 76.1 run blocking grade, highest on this whole list, including Brock Bowers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty good. Highest yards per route run of any player, 2.02.
That's what I was about to say. 49 for 676 is pretty impressive at the tight end spot. Getting 14 yards a clip.
Yeah, he is fun to watch because like I said, I thought he was just a receiver. But not only is he a good blocker, but he runs awesome routes. And he can run all the routes. From so my big thing with him is you can talk about all these things. So he's not necessarily a better athlete than some of these guys, yada, yada, yada. He does everything right all the time. And he was asked to do a lot. So we can't, there's some players, we talk about J.J. McCarthy in our other videos. He did a lot of things right, but he wasn't asked to do that much. No. Ben Sinnott was asked constantly to be the best player on the field, and he did it, and he was good at it. He didn't drop the ball. He didn't turn the ball over, didn't fumble at all. He basically was, one of the best blockers in college football for the position. One of the best. He had the best receiving grade. 22 years old. He's a pretty solid athlete across the board. 4.23 shuttle.
40 inch vert.
Huh?
40 inch vert.
Yeah. Jumps out exactly. And I don't remember his whole story, but I know that he switched positions early in his career. So he's a guy that you want on your team. He's a football player that is just going to go make the most of his opportunities, basically.
So my only thing with him is, or it's more of a question in general, but why is his name really not standing out amongst mock drafts and scouts when you look at second and third round mocks?
I don't know. I don't get it because personally, we as analysts, we want to look at projections of what a guy could be, I guess, right? Well, my first thing is let's look at production. How did they do? Well, this guy had produced constantly everywhere he went, everything he did. Production. Okay, cool. Check that box off. Is he enough of an athlete to do it? 40-inch vert, solid 40. For a guy that's going to block. We just talked about Jatavian Sanders. They basically ran the same 40. Well, Jatavian Sanders can't block the same way that Ben Sinnott can. So, okay, better. 4.23 shuttle. Okay, he's got solid quickness. I just, okay, check the box. There it is. Bam. Good. Did he do well at the Senior Bowl? Did he do well against other competition that's good? Yes. Check that box. I don't know. I don't get it. Maybe it's because Kansas State isn't as big, limelight-wise. I don't know. I really don't get it because he's not. To me, he was always kind of here in this area. It was always him and Jatavian. Theo Johnson came later because of the combine and the Senior Bowl. So I don't really understand why he wasn't in more of a conversation. He was the best tight end in the Big 12. and that's the same conference as Jatavian Sanders. I don't know. I don't understand why mock drafters aren't on board with this yet. So
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely an interesting name to watch, just because, like you said, he does all the things right.
Yeah.
He doesn't really have the flaw that would make it seem like he's flirting with the 4th round pick.
No injury history.
No.
I don't get it.
He's youthful.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, it'll remain to be seen, but he definitely stands out. We're definitely higher on him than others for good reason. So, but moving on, it's no secret. Number 1, Brock Bowers out of Georgia, 2-time Mackey Award winner. I would have to do some look up, but I think he might be the only guy ever.
Yeah, ever.
Okay.
He is.
Yeah. So first team All-American.
Multiple.
He might be the best if you're just looking for a football player. The best football player in this class, far enough.
The floor on Brock Bowers is the highest I've seen in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just floor alone. Like, it has nothing to do with upside, what he can do as a receiver, blocker, just where he could be if he was just a normal Brock Bowers on any given day.
Mm-hmm.
He's a top 3 player in our draft, on our draft big board if we made one. It's not really a question that he's the best prospect at this position. In, I don't know, forever, ever. If not, best tight end prospect ever. Well deserving too. Age, 21.6. Perfect. Typical tight end size, whatever. Just kind of does it all. Just is, when you need a big play, you don't necessarily have to look to a wide receiver. You look to, hey, Brock, let's go get this first down. Would you want to run an end around? Okay, we'll hand you the ball. Whatever. Like, He's like, get this man the ball. Let him run. When he came out as a freshman, we hadn't seen anything like it. Just insane.
You don't see true freshmen being all conference players, and
not in the SEC, not for Georgia.
No,
not when they have another tight end that's really good.
And you also don't hear. I've said this before. You don't hear announcers when they're talking about the game talking about a tight end being the best player in the nation, because his name is mentioned when you think of the top players in the country.
Right.
And when you're a tight end and you're getting that kind of praise, because tight ends largely are not that productive in college. They're more so.
Yeah.
They get the numbers once they get to the pros, because NFL kind of adheres more to tight ends. He does everything.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily about if he's a first rounder, it's how high he goes. And it's just interesting because of the positional value at quarterback, tackle, receiver.
Yeah.
And that's pushing him down mock drafts. And he is getting drafted like 8 to 10 spots lower than he should be.
Easy.
And we can't put him confidently anywhere because any team could use him.
Do you want to see, if you want to talk about the biggest steal of this draft, that's him.
Mm-hmm.
Because of where he's being picked in mocks. He's not going to go top 6, 7, 8 like he should. Maybe we'll go 8. That would be crazy. Hear me out. No, but I mean, honestly, like, there's nowhere to put him that doesn't have a bigger need, or there's a situation that makes sense. Like I just said 8. I was joking because Atlanta is 8, and they have Kyle Pitts. Like, it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense for him to go at 9, 10. Well, maybe 10. Hopefully 10 is the place he falls, because if he falls any farther than that, someone needs to come get him, basically, is how I look at it. Like, someone needs to trade up, maybe 12 with the Broncos. We've talked about that before. They have no draft assets, capital. So maybe that's a good spot to come get him, because, like, he should not, like, him and Marvin Harrison are, the guys that need to be prioritized in this draft. And right now, he's going to go behind, 3 wide receivers, 4 quarterbacks, some tackles, maybe a defensive player. Like, he is by far better than so many guys in this draft that are going to go above him. So
right. And just kind of another tidbit. I know visits and aren't everything in a pre-draft process, but he just finished up a scheduled visit with the Bears. The Bears have Cole Kmet, and they just signed Gerald Everett. Why are you visiting with the top 10 caliber pick at tight end?
No.
Because he's that good.
Yeah, no, he walks in day one and is the best tight end in that draft that room by far. And that's why so we talked about Chicago. Where's the best improvement? We had that conversation about like, should they go left tackle or should they go edge or should they go corner, whatever, wide receiver. Where's the best improvement? Well, it's not tight end, but
I mean,
I would not be mad at them if they went Brock Bowers because Cole Kmet's going to run out of his contract. Gerald Everett's a patch job for a little while, that kind of thing, where the number 2 that's actually a receiver rather than Cole Kmet, who's more of a blocking tight end. You bring Brock Bowers in, you've got a guy that can do everything and possibly be the best at it. Right. I wouldn't expect they might extend Keenan, but there's room for another receiver, another guy that can catch the ball on their team, especially if they're willing to let Cole Kmet walk and whenever his contract is up. And Brock Bowers could be the guy.
I don't know. Yeah, he's one that probably we won't be confident even the night before the draft doing the final mock.
No.
Putting him somewhere. However, one thing is certain is whoever does pick him up is going to get an A+ grade from us.
Yes.
For their first move of the night. Unless it's something like
New England.
Somebody well, yes.
Right.
But
yes.
Unless it's something like you mentioned trading up. If somebody moved up from like 27 all the way to 12 and gives up a first to get him, so you're investing 2 first-round picks in a tight end, that's unheard of, and so that might bring the grade down
B+.
A little bit. But it's still, you're getting a great football player.
Yeah,
I know it's a different position, but Julio Jones, when Atlanta traded from 27 all the way to 6 to take him, 2 first-round picks and multiple other picks, everybody graded that as like a C- move because it's like, why would you trade that far up for? And then Julio's been, to me, the best receiver in the last 10 years.
Yeah, I would say so.
And he wasn't even the first receiver in that class. AJ Green was, but that's just the kind of thing. We don't love doing grades, but that's the only way that I'm just like, okay, that's a little pricey,
right? For sure.
However, it's a day one impact level.
But it's your guy. It's like it's your guy.
He's that guy.
Yeah. And so like, how do you get mad at a team either to like want to get someone that might be the best player at his position for years to come too? It's like if we look back at the Rams and they got Aaron Donald, like say they had to move up and lose 2 first-rounders for him. Okay. He was the best D tackle in football for multiple years, 10 years of dominance, basically. You never would have been mad at them.
Absolutely.
So,
and if you just look at our 2 teams, the Raiders and the Cowboys both don't necessarily need tight ends.
Right.
But if either one somehow were to be able to select him or took a chance, I guarantee you we do not enter August without one of us buying that jersey.
Oh no, absolutely. Yeah, we'll be wearing. Yeah, absolutely. It'll be awesome. At 13, if we picked him at 13, and we have a young tight end, so it's not like
Michael Mayer was my favorite coming out last year, and I was very upset when Dallas didn't take a chance on him, or he fell into, I think he was the 3rd tight end off the board.
Yeah, 3rd tight end off the board.
But at the same time, he was one that, of all the young tight ends that had a great rookie year, he did not. And a lot of that was a product of the environment
situation.
But that doesn't change the fact that he's going to be a very good tight end in this league. So, like you said, and then Jake Ferguson on our end, very solid year.
Yeah.
But Dallas was like, we don't need a tight end. And then you draft Luke Schoonmaker, and that was just stupid.
It was.
It was very stupid.
Well, I love Dallas fans when they got mad at when Dallas Goedert got picked.
Oh,
yeah. when Philly jumped in front of you all.
David Akers had to.
Yeah, he did. Just to remind you. That was great. It was.
I don't know. We're still looking for our, post Jason Witten. We've always had a good tight end for a long time, and then Dalton Schultz was serviceable, could not block with a damn.
Yeah.
But he's a very good receiving tight end. Jake Ferguson, solid year, but not spectacular. Luke Schoonmaker,
I like him a lot.
Not the answer. Who knows? But yeah, this isn't a Dallas thing because he won't be on the board at 24. I know that.
And y'all aren't moving up for him. So
probably not.
I'll just be honest. Y'all don't like doing anything.
I would. So just optimistically love it.
But yeah, so that's us talking and ranting about the best tight end prospect of all time. We really appreciate y'all coming and hanging out and being a part of the discussion. Go like, comment, subscribe. Please comment. We love comments. We want to get some answers, get y'all talking with y'all, and see y'all on our Discord talking to us. We're about to start posting on Instagram all these pics and stuff, and then we'll. We already are on Twitter and X, working some of that stuff, talking about our views on things, and yeah. So we're trying to get the community going and building it up. So we'd appreciate y'all if y'all jumped on everything.
Yeah, thank you guys for jumping in. Look out for other positional videos. We got our mock 2.0 coming out next week. Is what we'll be doing. That'll be post pro day / combine. We'll have some maneuvering around, but tons more content. And then once we hit that, there's a lot of downtime between then and the draft, but we'll still be pumping out content with fun, creative things.
Yep.
I'm excited for it, and you guys should be too. So,
what would we do? Drafts and different things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, we'll. Like I said, we've done mock drafts off screen for multiple years, and so we're going to be looking back and seeing how those went, just to give you all perspective of our thoughts at the time. A lot of hits, but there's some misses as well.
Definitely.
We're definitely not perfect. Nobody is in this industry, and the best thing we can do is just try to entertain, inform, and do what we can do to just build a community, because we're football fans at the end of the day. That is the first and foremost reason that we do this. So.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, we are way, way better as analysts than the Raiders have been for the last 20 years.
Yeah, and that's Mike Mayock, who was the number one analyst on NFL Network.
Yeah,
got an NFL GM job, and
has not seen him since.
I haven't heard. I don't know where he's at.
Yeah, he has not had the same. Alex Leatherwood. Come on, man.
Yeah,
come on, man. We could have got Jock. It was right there. It's okay. I'm not going into that. So, but yeah, we really appreciate y'all, and we'll see y'all next time.